I'd like to call this meeting to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu, Mr. Sismar.
Here.
Mr. Hong.
Here.
Mrs. Lax.
Here.
Mrs. Reese.
Here.
Mr. Sealer.
Here.
Mr. Simmons.
Here.
Mr. Winston.
Here.
President Becker.
Here, we have a quorum. Please rise to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the East Brunswick Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published at the Board of Education office. Also, written notice provided to the Sentinel, the Newark Star Ledger, the Home News Tribune, and Municipal Clerk of East Brunswick. All Board of Education meetings, with the exception of executive session discussions, are videotaped for later broadcast. It is the policy of the Board of Education that videotape meetings are not edited for any purposes, and individuals who speak at the board's public meetings should be aware of these videotaping rules. Good evening. We're going to start off with the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Valesky?
Thank you, President Becker. Good evening, everyone. We appreciate your interest tonight. Let me begin by setting the record straight. There has not been any proposal or recommendation from this administration or action by this Board of Education to cut the arts. And I'll repeat that. The arts are not being cut. So 5 years ago, I launched the EQB expression. It's posted in all of our schools and on the district website. It's my way of empowering every individual in the organization to work toward continuous improvement. In examining our current condition, we recognize that middle school students have changed, and therefore their instructional experience at middle school must change. Current 5th and 6th grade students have been exposed to full-day kindergarten, including art and music instruction, and come technologically prepared in unprecedented ways. They are the iPad before potty training generation. It's our responsibility to meet them where they are and continue to expand and enhance their learning opportunities. Over the past 3 years, a focus of this board has been to fully support the transition from elementary to middle school. With that, we acknowledge the need to support students with greater health and wellness instruction. In addition, we have heard clearly from our teachers, administrators, and community that our current math program is in need of revision. The arts consist of multiple disciplines: dance, music, theater, media arts, literature, design, and visual arts. Rather than teach each of these disciplines in isolation, we are creating new courses that integrate all disciplines to provide a more authentic learning experience. In 6th grade, students will receive a half-year course focused on current trends in adolescent health and wellness. The 6th grade new course will be a half-year project-based course allowing students to design, engineer, create, and execute various projects. Then in 7th grade, students will receive, again, a half-year course focused on current trends in adolescent health and wellness. And the 7th grade new course will be a half-year performance-based course allowing students to explore all forms of artistic expression. Complementing the new courses are a variety of electives available to our students. Over the past 2 years, this Board of Education is also committed to expanding club offerings that support the ever-changing interest of our students. To meet the needs of all learners, we are actively investigating new math curricular options. One important disparity between the elementary and middle school is math instructional time. our students transition from 180 hours of math instruction per year in elementary school down to 120 hours at the middle school. The decrease in math instruction is in direct conflict with the increased rigor that students encounter in 6th grade. Looking at what we call our cycle courses more holistically, which, by the way, have not been revised since the early 1990s, allows us to provide 189 hours of math instruction, putting us on par with other similar high-performing middle schools. This is a sample of the revised schedule where we see alternating physical education and elective courses, as well as alternating days of a cycle class or the additional period of mathematics. And I'm going to leave that up there just for a second so people can see. We are deeply committed to providing our students with a well-rounded education and providing opportunities to explore their interests as we continue to meet the needs of all learners. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Valesky. We now come to the good of the cause of the public. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of providing an opportunity to the public to express themselves. To allow for a fair and orderly public comment period and in accordance with board bylaws, individual comments are limited to 5 minutes. Members of the public are reminded this is a public televised meeting of the Board of Education, and to protect the privacy of all students and staffs, concerns regarding individual students and staff members should generally be addressed by first meeting with the appropriate administrative staff. Anyone wishing to address the board tonight? Please step up to the microphone. I'm going to ask you to give your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Deborah Zidmer. Do you need my address? I'm sorry. Yes, 8 Francis Road. Is that usually what we do?
For the record.
Okay.
I didn't say what record, but it's a record. I was
Okay.
kidding.
Okay. I didn't hear you. Good evening. I'm going to continue because even though I know you explained something a little bit different, I do think that the arts are still being reduced significantly, at least in time during the day, from what it was this year. So I'm going to continue as I had written this. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Education. My name is Deborah Zidmer, and I was both raised in East Brunswick and returned to our town as a parent of young children, almost solely for the reputation of its outstanding schools. I'm also an educator with over 20 years' experience in the classroom, teaching in one of the state's most competitive school districts, where I truly believe a decision like this one recently made in relation to the Hammersholt Middle School student schedule would never be considered. Please hear me out as I explain why I believe this decision is counterintuitive, outmoded, and ineffectual. In recent days, it has come to the attention of many that the district is resolved to alter the Hammersholt Middle School student schedule. Described as what education looks like on a national and global scale, it has been decided that the cycle of theater, health, art, STEM, and computers need to be profoundly reduced in favor of a 50% increase of time spent in math class. This is in addition to an already double period of ILA our 6th and 7th graders receive on a daily basis. As both a taxpayer and parent, I'm disheartened at another knee-jerk response to a now waning system of high-stakes standardized testing that continues to wreak havoc on East Brunswick teachers, curriculum, and most importantly, students. While I believe it's safe to assume that none of us here are opposed to educational assessment or accountability, I cannot stand by and allow my students' learning environment, my children's, pardon me, to be constrained by this persistent obsession with test scores. Test scores which now threaten to hijack the depth and breadth of learning in order to impose an ill-conceived agenda of oversimplistic thinking upon our schools. While I'm not interested in calling into question those who surmised that this shift in the school day would be a good idea, I do take issue with the spin that this is somehow a reflection of what forward-thinking, innovative, 21st century teaching and learning looks like. More reading, writing, and arithmetic is certainly not a novel idea. In fact, over the past century, great schools of pedagogy and great thinkers in education, including but not nearly limited to Teachers College, University of Chicago, Stanford, Penn, John Dewey, Marie Montessori, Helen Pankhurst, Rudolf Steiner, just to name a few, have expended an immeasurable amount of time, money, and intellect on escaping this very mindset. And because of this senseless amount of credence that has been given to these for-profit assessments that have never been validated as a legitimate measure of student success, we're planning to return to a time where education means just the basics. I have an intrinsic problem with this, and you should too. I was going to share examples of peer-reviewed studies to show that the correlation between arts and math or ILAs, that show the correlation between arts and math or ILA scores. But instead, I'd like to bring your attention to one that did not come to the same conclusion. One that found that classes in the arts did not necessarily improve learners' math and reading skills. And why, out of hundreds of studies, did I choose to draw your attention to this one? Because of what Ellen Winter and Lois Hetland of Project Zero at Harvard Graduate School of Education concluded. They surmised that the, quote, art should be championed for its own sake and not just for wishful sentiment. The idea that standardized test scores will improve because of the arts is a much too limited view of what learning is. Winter and Hetland found that not only do the students learn skills related to painting, theater, design, dancing, etc., when engaged in the arts, they also, quote, are taught to see better, to envision, to persist, to be playful, and learn from mistakes, to make critical judgments, and to justify such judgments. If these aren't reasons to rethink the decision the district has made, I'm not sure what is. Removing cycle classes from Hammersholt Middle School is a short-sighted decision that will do a disservice to the students of the East Brunswick Public Schools. If the attitude of quantification over quality continues to prevail, our school district's ability to truly promote its message of, quote, excellence in the academics, athletics, and the arts will be left in shambles, and therefore, members of the board, I implore you to reconsider this decision. Thank you very much for your time, attention, and consideration.
Good evening. My name is Dominic Sclafani, 129 Joseph Street. I am a 10th grader at the high school, so this doesn't really affect me, but I want to share a personal story. I do remember going in when I was at Hammersholt and going through the cycles and having the time of my life. And I remember making friendships and connections in those classes. I feel as if taking the cycles away, you're going to limit those experiences in some areas. Also, I want to remind everyone that we have a motto here in East Brunswick: we are EB, we are one. And by taking away a cycle, I feel like it's going to diminish that saying a little bit.
So if I could, just for clarification, we are not eliminating the cycle classes. We are reimagining what they are, but they are not being eliminated.
Good evening. Carrie Hennessy, 12 Delaware Drive.
Excuse me, can you repeat your name, please?
Carrie Hennessy,
Thank you.
12 Delaware Drive. I'm here tonight to speak to you as a parent of several East Brunswick Public School students with different needs and different feelings on this subject. For the student who tried a few different things and found a love of music and continued with chorus right up to senior year, if he didn't have cycle class in Hammersholt, would he have skipped a year or two of chorus to try something different? Would he have missed out on the opportunities to sing in concert choir and participate in various choral competitions? Has ending his school day singing with his friends helped him de-stress from a course load often filled with AP classes and rigorous academic expectations? For the student who struggles with ADHD and other mental health issues that make simply being in school a challenge. When he first got to high school, he told anyone who would listen how great it was for someone like him to be at Hammersholt, where you get to get up and move around between classes. He was so relieved when he got to Churchill and no longer had the double period English class. Would he have made it through the day with both math and English double periods? Could there be anything better for children like him with limited attention than a cycle class that switches every 6 weeks to a new and interesting topic? For the straight-A student who places tons of pressure on herself and says those classes make her uncomfortable. I want her to be forced to step outside her comfort zone and be exposed to classes that she might not choose on her own. I want her to be forced to take a little mental break during her school day with something less academic. I want her to overcome her fear of public speaking and develop skills in areas that she may not do perfectly, so she wouldn't choose to do it all. For the youngest of our bunch, who found a love of music with band, if he didn't have cycle class in Hammersholt, would he still have the opportunity for band? Would that band time have to be given up to accommodate other requirements? Would band get pushed to an after-school activity, which would then force him to choose between his love of music and his first love, sports? While my children won't be directly affected by the proposed changes at Hammersholt, I don't want any children to miss out. I also don't want us to accept this change and find that it's not the solution that we hoped it would be, and that something else of value is lost to our children, and then something else, and something else. When does it end? When are we left with nothing but testing? Don't let it be too late. Please don't take these classes away.
I respect everyone who's here tonight, but please understand, we are not eliminating cycle courses. We are not eliminating the arts at Hammersholt. We will never make a child have to make a decision where they will not have arts in their life, ever. Thank you.
Are you saying then, can I ask a question?
I'm sorry, sir, you can come right up to the thing. Absolutely, sir. And if you could just state your name and address.
Hi, my name's Tom Sclafani. I live at 129 Joseph Street. I guess maybe just to clarify a little more, it seems like we're diminishing minutes to add minutes to math. Am I correct or am I wrong?
There is an adjustment to,
Okay.
to add additional math instructional time. But with that, by repurposing, reimagining what the cycle courses could be, and integrating multiple disciplines within those courses, students will have exposure to many different topics and many different interests, which is really what the cycle courses were about.
Could you maybe just take me through like the typical day? Like I'm coming into school now as a student. If you take me through, what would my math be like and what would the art be like? Am I walking into an art class to create things, into a classroom, or as a teacher on the move, going from school to do things? You know,
We envision this being a classroom, just so.
is it an art room or a class?
Well, a space in the
space.
school.
Okay,
Now,
so it's not the art room.
The curriculum hasn't been designed for these courses yet,
Okay.
and that's to be done. So this is really about blocking out where we feel the priorities need to be.
Okay.
I did mention in the presentation that we are looking at a new math curriculum and new math programs. That's been an issue that the board has discussed for multiple years. And we have found that the math programs that we're looking at can't be delivered in the amount of time that we currently have at Hammersholt.
Okay.
And so it would be unfair to try to do that, to ask our teachers to instruct that curriculum in a limited amount of time. And in fact, the providers say don't buy their product if we can't provide the time to do it with what they call fidelity, to do it in the right way. So we talked about reimagining what the cycle classes were like, but I don't want everyone to lose focus about the elective options that students have. And we had a slide up there, and I just wanted to mention very quickly before we pull up the schedule. Can you pull it up, Shriti? Can you go to the elective slide right there? So we have art exploration, STEM, band, beginning piano, orchestra, chorus, family consumer science. Those are all electives available to students. And the board has enhanced their support for clubs. Clubs continue to evolve based on the interest of students. So if a group of students ever came together and said, we're interested in doing X, Y, or Z, and they could find somebody, a sponsor, a school sponsor to support that, then the board is willing to sponsor that because we want students to have opportunities to explore. And even if it's a short term and it fizzles out because people aren't interested anymore, we've tried. We'll move on to the next opportunity. So it's not about compartmentalizing and saying, these are your only options.
See, I look at, let's say, art. I mean, there's a lot of math in art.
Yes.
Right? So, you know, to me, it's almost like you're learning a lot through that course that will help you in geometry, you know,
Right.
figuring things. My kids, I've had 5 kids come through the school. Dominic's the youngest. Everybody else is out. The arts in general for my children have been unbelievable. My oldest son is a professional actor. My daughter has done many different plays and sang in a lot of places. He's done a lot of stuff. I think the group even, and I can't speak for the group, but I'm thinking here a little bit that to eliminate that classroom that a kid is in, that goes in every day for that cycle and learns how to create something right there. I'd hate to see something like that really be kind of given up. And I do have to agree with what you said before with the test scores. I'm also a teacher. I teach at Highland Park High School, and I've been an educator for 25 years. And I know where all this is going. You know, I mean, we're looking at state money and things like that. I just think we maybe all have to take a step back and look at what the kids would like. If you polled every kid in the school what they would like on what you're proposing, what would they say? Think about that. I mean, that'd be an interesting thing if you polled every single kid. And here would be my question to the board. If there were 100 kids polled and 67 of them said we want to keep the things the way we're going, would you keep it? And if not, I just want to know why we're trying really to move forward. Is it due to what you suggested with test scores, you know, like that? So if you can answer that, that'd be great.
Test scores were not the driving factor.
Okay.
But once we started looking, the cycle courses, as I mentioned, hadn't been looked at since the early 1990s.
Fair enough.
They have been in existence and pretty much the same since the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
We recognized that our students were coming to Hammersholt with a different skill set than they had been prior to. The student of today, the student that will be entering Hammersholt next school year, looks different than the student who came 5 years, 10 years ago. They come with a different set of computer literacy, technological literacy, because at an earlier age, they've all been exposed to that technology, and they're native about it. It's become part of their life. I'm not diminishing the young people in the audience that they aren't as well, but every generation becomes more tech savvy. And our job is to provide opportunities for them to start there and expand beyond that. So we don't want to utilize time in instruction to repeat what they may already know. Now, we will have some students that will be at varying degrees. This allows us opportunities to provide more differentiation, more direct instruction to people who have different needs. But as I said, one of the opportunities that we have, and I think you asked a very good question about if we polled the students, what would they say and what would the board react to? When the board decided to fund more of the clubs, one of the things they had committed to was, what do the students want? What are the student interests? And so that list could change year to year depending on what students wanted.
I can see that, yeah.
That's not driven by the Board of Education, by the administration, or even the building administration. That's driven by student interest. And as long as students continue to demonstrate interest in all of those activities, the board's committed to fund them. If they decide they want to try something new, the board's committed to exploring opportunities to explore something new. And then if that blossoms into something bigger, so be it.
So let me just ask one last question then, is, let's say, take the role of the art teacher, if you don't mind, all right? Tell me what the day is going to be like, you know, come September for you as that art teacher. So you're going to go from place to place. Am I correct on that? How will that work?
I don't know if we worked all that detail out yet. Have we, Dr. Gaskell? I don't know if we have.
There are teachers that are housed in Hammersholt that are going to be teaching.
But as far as physical space, I think this gentleman's asking about the physical space. Yeah. So, can you put up the schedule, Trudy? So this is just a sample schedule of where a student would go on A day and B day.
Okay.
And this isn't meant to represent every single student. It's just a sample because some students' schedule will vary depending on how their day lays out. Does that more clearly explain?
I think what I'm looking, what I'm looking for is if you're the art teacher, tell me from class, first period, second period, third period, how's your day going? Are you going from point A to point B to teach and then to point C?
I think, no, you're in a classroom.
Staying in one classroom the whole time?
Yeah, the students are coming to you.
They're coming to you.
Yeah.
Is it an art room like what's kind of traditional, like, what we have now?
It's a room. It may not be because we're integrating multiple disciplines in that course. So art includes many different things.
Mm-hmm.
So design being one of them. So
Fine,
if you're designing something, if you're using technological media, say for example, we have students that perform in the plays.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another group of students that design the sets,
Right, okay.
operate the technology behind the scenes. That's
Costumes,
all of
makeup.
performance art too. So there are many different elements that we can
So
explore.
you're trying to incorporate that into that classroom then?
We want to create
Some-
opportunities for students to explore that.
Mm-hmm.
They may not be the student who says, I want to be in the lights. I don't want a speaking part, but I want to be behind the scenes. I want to help build the sets, or I want to run the lights, or I want to run the sound, or the effects. Those students need an opportunity to explore their interest as well.
Okay, fair enough. All right, thank you.
The board and superintendent usually aren't this interactive during the good of the cause of the public, but this is something that we are all very passionate about, which is our children. So if you will allow us from time to time to say something, we would greatly appreciate it. This is your time to express your comments, but there are things that we want to say because we're just as passionate about this as you are. I'm going to give Mr. Simon a few minutes, and then we'll resume with our group, a couple of people, and then perhaps another board member may want to say something. And I thank you in advance.
Thank you, Mrs. Becker. Here's how I see this now, having gone through Hammarskjöld twice and about to go through again. The way that a day could work for a student is you would have the cycles, which were 7-week bursts, 5 of them. And in the cycles, you typically had health and art and family consumer science or some cooking, maybe a STEM or computer class, okay? And those were your cycles. They maybe were changed between 6 and 7 a little bit, but that was essentially it. But then you had your elective, and we have to remember what the electives were for. The elective is a full year. It's AB, so it was phys ed or elective. The same courses essentially were offered in electives. You had art, you had STEM, you had family consumer science, you had more options, you had music, and health is not going away, of course. In fact, I'll get into health in a second. Thank you, Dr. Valesky, and thank you, Ms. Atkins. So we offer a full year of these courses, art, STEM, all those, and music courses, family consumer science. So, and you have 2 years. You can take, one of those in grade 6, another one in grade 7. You can mix it up however you want to do that. In addition to the new course, the new retooling that Dr. Valesky's talking about, you're getting the opportunity, which is what I think I hear, to take all these different disciplines in Hammarskjöld. What we're doing is we're just adding a bit more math from what I hear, and I will tell you, well, I'll go into health first. One question I had is, are we giving enough health? And apparently, and I'm sure you're going to probably kill me for this, but we're not offering what the state requires in health. We're behind. So we have to fix that problem. We don't have a choice.
Correct.
And I'm not sure phys ed, I'm not sure we're quite where we should be in phys ed either, but we haven't tweaked that, so I'm going to leave that alone. So we have to make some choices, and the only way to get health where it needs to be is to just look at the whole schedule. We can't increase the school day. That's not practical. So we are offering everything the way that we need to. Everybody has a chance in 6 and 7 to take all those electives. And again, it's an alternating day. It's all year. And then you still have this course that's going to integrate all these disciplines. And some will be integrated in grade 6. Others will be in grade 7. It will be mixed up a little bit. So it won't be the same course. Whereas what I always saw is the 6 and 7 cycles were a little repetitive. They needed to be mixed up a little bit. And what I would say about math is this. I said, I agree. We teach the test too much. I don't think I've made a mystery of how I feel about Park. I think it is a waste of time. I think our kids can be doing much better things in the 2 weeks, and our staff, that they are reshuffled, moved around, and not on task. 2 weeks. It's just absolutely disruptive. It's probably more than 2 weeks. However, almost every one of our kids takes the SAT or the ACT if they want to go to college. We have nothing we can do about that. And the only way to be prepared for the SAT is to be prepared in ILA and in math. The ACT adds science onto that. We have no choice. If we want to be competitive as a community, as a district, we have to teach math. And I do think we made a decision years ago to double up on ILA. Doubling up on math might be a bit much, okay? But I do think to bridge between where you are in elementary and where we expect our kids to be in 8 and 9, we're talking, pre-calc at some point. We're not giving enough. We just don't have enough time. Math is what it is. We can't change the math curriculum. It is as difficult as it is. We can't fix that. But we can give every opportunity, and I think that this gets you there. It is the best, most reasonable change to keep all the opportunity in all the different disciplines, and at the same time meet our obligation in health and pump up the math a bit. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Now we're going to resume, and thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Becker.
Good evening. My name is Michelle DeGrossa. I'm a teacher in the district, so my address is not in town, 65 Eli Harmony Road in Freehold. So I just wanted to speak to you a little bit from an educator's point of view. And I would like to thank you for listening to all of us this evening. Again, my name is Michelle DeGrossa. I'm one of the band directors at Churchill Junior High School, and I have been teaching music in East Brunswick since 2004. I left my very first teaching position to come to East Brunswick specifically because of its reputation for being one of the strongest arts programs in the state of New Jersey. Having been involved in various arts organizations at the local and state levels, I am always proud to discuss with my colleagues from other school districts how invested we are at maintaining excellence in our art programs in East Brunswick. I have sat many times and conversed with educators from other districts and described to them how our programs are structured in order to allow our students to consistently achieve great things. I proudly state that we are able to maintain such a high level of achievement in the arts because of our wide and varied program offerings and the support given to these programs from the administration and the community. So, when I recently heard about the proposed restructuring of the cycle courses at Hammersholt, and I began to understand exactly what types of changes to programs were planned on being made, my heart really did sink. This restructuring of the cycle courses is an attempt, in my opinion, to create a one-stop shop for arts education. Just taking into account theater and arts alone, the students will go from 144 days of art and theater during their cycle experiences over 2 years in Hammersholt, down to a mere 45 days over the course of that time. This is a 68.75%. This is a 68.75% reduction in the amount of theater and art instruction. Additionally, a student cannot truly receive a full and complete education of a subject area when it is combined together with another subject into a 45-day course. One of the goals of educating the adolescent student should be to let them experience everything that the world of the arts has to offer, and let them use those experiences to then make decisions in important course selections, the electives, moving forward through junior high school and high school. Moving forward with this restructuring as planned would be doing a great disservice, I believe, to our students. On a personal note, the reason that I became an arts educator and I am so passionate and standing up here about my subject area is because the arts saved me as a student. With all of the stressors that school provides, my arts courses were the one place that I could breathe during my school day. It was my safe space and the reason I was able to make it through the rest of my day. And in my 18 years of teaching, I have had countless amounts of students tell me the same about their school experience. They couldn't get through their day if they didn't have their art. So if we choose to replace these cycle courses with additional math time, I can only imagine what the levels of depression and anxiety will rise to in our district. I would like to ask you, is there research that shows that additional math time equals higher test scores? Have you done this research? I also would like to know exactly which test scores are being used in the data to drive these decisions. How about all the research, as other people have stated, that proves time and time again how arts experiences improve scores in areas like math? We speak so frequently today as educators on how to balance the well-being and mental health of our students with the academic tasks we want them to complete on a daily basis and the testing demands that are put upon them. So then how can we say we're providing the best education possible for our students when we take away this one bright spot in their day? This space to breathe, this safe space, this artistic outlet, or whatever you may want to call it, is what many times enables them to face the rest of the demands placed upon them with all the fierceness and excellence that we expect from our students here in East Brunswick. If we allow this change in our programs, we will shortly start to see our motto of excellence in the academics, athletics, and the arts become a distant memory of the past. I would like to thank you again for listening, and this is what I would urge you to do. I would urge you to go back to the drawing board. I would urge you to involve all stakeholders that would be involved by these changes and come up with a solution that is research-based and beneficial for all students in the East Brunswick School District. Thank you.
I didn't know if any other board members.
Yeah, no, we're going to let a few
Okay, thank
people talk. It's your time.
Hi, my name's Eric Sturr. I am also a teacher in East Brunswick. My address is 1 Carnation Place, Lawrence Township, New Jersey. Dr. Vleski, I appreciate your clarification that the arts are not being cut. I think a lot of people are viewing the reduction in sole art-specific instruction as a de facto cut. So while it's not a semantic cut, it's hard to make it feel like anything else. Personally, I feel like a hybrid, multi-dimensional class, while it might be more efficient, especially time-wise, because I know you said like you can't add more time to the school day because it's not practical. It's just simply not the same as standalone art, standalone computer, standalone theater, etc. I personally really worry that the whole of this will be much weaker than the sum of its like individual separate parts, if that makes sense. I feel lucky and fortunate to have spent my entire career in East Brunswick. This is my 11th year of teaching. And I look around the room and I see the board members, I see my colleagues, I see administrators that I've come to know over the last decade. Some of you I've seen at concerts, some of you I've seen in events, some of you I've seen in my classroom. It's a general rule in my classroom that the truth always wants to be set free, and I would be remiss if I did not practice that same philosophy. And I have a couple of truths, while uncomfortable, I'd like to share with you tonight. I came here tonight because I want you all to know that this decision to greatly reduce instruction time in regard to education at the middle school level, I feel incredibly devalued as an educator because of this. I look around the room and I see the teachers who have shown up about this issue. These are not people who are troublemakers. These are not dissenters. These are not people who are prone to hysterics or drama. These are people who believe in the success of our students first and foremost. I hope when you look at the familiar faces here tonight that you see that these are people who have merit, that our complaints have merit. We are the ones who are on the front lines every day with these students, and we are the ones who are encouraging you to rethink this. We all know that not every kid is going to become an actor, an artist, a musician. But not every kid is going to become an accountant or a lawyer or an engineer either. You cannot argue against the fact that children's arts experiences don't have a permanent, indelible impact on their development. 2 days ago, the EBEF had an event honoring Glenn Slater, a former East Brunswick student who has since become a Tony winner. Many of the faces I see here tonight, I saw at that very dinner. And I wonder, how can we reconcile that fact that we're honoring an East Brunswick alum for his artistic accomplishments while we're simultaneously restricting that same program that fostered him? I deeply worry about the mental health, the anxiety, and quite frankly, the suicide rate of our students. We are robbing these kids of a chance to seek out their interests at a young age, to give them stress coping outlets. And I want to give them an opportunity for personal growth that becomes rarer and rarer in a technology-obsessed world. Cooking, drawing, painting, acting, and performing are all creative outlets that enrich our students' lives, whether it is a career path or not. And I know that it's not a cut. I totally understand that distinction. One of the things I read when I was reading this was basically if a kid doesn't have a good, solid arts education by 6th or 7th grade, they won't draw again. And I can say as someone who didn't have a very good middle school arts education with very bad artistic ability, I can personally relate to that. I have a couple of brief stats to share. A 2002 report by the Arts Education Partnership revealed that school children exposed to drama, music, and dance are more proficient at reading, writing, and math. A 2013 Michigan State study concluded effective arts integration improves test scores. As of 2016, 68% of 8th graders in the Northeast reported taking at least one visual arts class in high school. When you go to the South, that number drops to 35%. I don't know if we would describe Alabama, Mississippi, or West Virginia as particularly forward-thinking states when it comes to education reform. A study published by Rice University last month noted the following. Researchers found arts learning experiences benefit students in terms of reductions in disciplinary infractions, increases of compassion for others, and improvements in writing achievement. Furthermore, arts education experiences improve school engagement and college aspirations. East Brunswick has always been so forward-thinking with our pedagogical approach. And like I said before, I'm proud to work here. Why are we making policy changes that fly in the face of decades of information illustrating a different outcome? Also, when I was doing research, I looked at a lot of studies that talked about the benefits of the double dosing of math and ILA. And every single one that I looked at also included the negative effects, offset by the loss of electives and the rise of mental health issues. By de-emphasizing these classes that are so essential for our kids' development, we are still setting the precedent that the arts don't matter as much. It sets the precedent that we would be willing to erode the arts for the sake of whatever pressing issue is facing our district. When I look and see in the news about the constant barrage of negative stories about public education, I never even think twice about the calling in life so many of my fellow colleagues have chosen. These proposed cuts will barely affect me personally, and yet I can't help but feel so aggrieved at the short shrift given to some of our programs. These are the things that happen in other districts. They're not the things that happen in East Brunswick.
1 minute.
I hope you all reconsider the changes, because for my whole career, I've been told that we value excellence in not only academics, but our arts as well. I would like to think that better angels will prevail in terms of how we can demonstrate that value to our East Brunswick families. Thank you, everybody.
My name is Hallie Eisenberg, 35 Buffalo Run. I am going to read a letter on behalf of my mother, Amy Eisenberg, who couldn't attend this meeting, but she gave this to me. In May of 1992, as a parent of 2 children and one on the way, I approached Dr. Susko, the Hammersholt Middle School principal. I asked her if I could start a theater arts after-school program for the school. My kids, then a 6th grader and a 3rd grader, were involved in musical theater programs outside of school and wanted to develop those skills. There was nothing offered in theater arts until the high school at that time. Skeptical of student body interest and only knowing me a little as a parent, she informed me that she first had to present the idea to the faculty to see if anyone had an interest in leading such a group. That August, I gave birth to my 3rd child and assumed that either another teacher took on the role or Dr. Susko decided not to add another program. During the 2nd week of school, she called me and asked me which day I would like to have my theater arts meetings. I didn't hesitate. Thursday, I said. And thus the first Hammersholt Middle School theater arts program was born. That first Thursday, expecting 15 to 20 students, I went into a packed all-purpose room. I asked for a show of hands. Who is here for the bus? Not a hand. Who is here for a parent pickup? Not a hand. Who is here for drama club? I'm not exaggerating when I say that 200 hands shot up excitedly. Immediately, I had to rethink my planned curriculum. We divided into small groups and designated team leaders. We played theater games to get to know one another. The next week, I was more prepared and planned several short skits for each group. We put on a short showcase for parents, family, and friends, and at the end of the year. During the spring, on no budget whatsoever, we put on Grease. Dr. Susko was sitting front and center, applauding at each and every opportunity. After the performance, I was cleaning up the stage, and one of the students came back in through the stage door. He was only in the program because his parents needed somewhere for him to be after school on Thursdays. He told me on day 1 he would much rather be playing football. He came back in because he'd accidentally left with one of the costumes, a black leather jacket. I stood up to greet him. He took the jacket off and put it around my shoulders. He said this was the best night of my life. It was all I could do to not cry and totally embarrass him, but he had tears in his eyes as he turned to go, saying thank you. This was a moment I would never forget. Our program continued for 6 more years. During the 4th year, Dr. Susko asked if I could teach theater arts as a program for all of the students. For a variety of reasons, I could not. But understanding firsthand the enormous benefits to the middle school students, she wanted every student to have the opportunity to participate in theater arts during the school day. The kids in my program never, ever missed a meeting or rehearsal. They didn't want to let their friends down, and they didn't want to miss anything. Kids that had been outsiders felt connected. Students that would have anxiety attacks on the day that they had to give book reports were standing confidently in front of their ILA classes, talking animatedly about their books. This was not anomalous. Study after study supports these findings. Attendance among theater art students is higher than the general population. Academic and psychosocial benefits abound. Dr. Susko hired 2 teachers, Kat Jager and Melissa Langton, to teach cycle classes so that every single Hammarskjold student could reap these benefits. Limiting the arts and taking away theater arts from these students is not going forward into the 21st century. It's going backward over a quarter century and more. The performing arts are not just a nice extra. They're character building, character supporting, character developing. This is what school is ultimately about. School is where we figure out how to navigate relationships. School should be where we figure out who we are and what kind of people we want to be. 27 years later, my former students still call me and tell me how the program had such a profound impact on their lives. These people are not actors. They're lawyers, electricians, psychiatrists, teachers. They're stay-at-home parents. They might even be someone in this room. Thank you.
Jeff, I know you want to say something, and just as I've asked the public to please limit their comments to 5 minutes, I'm going to ask the board members to please limit their comments to 3 minutes.
3? Wow.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to talk really fast, so you're ready? Here we go.
Thank you.
All right, so my name is Jeff Winston. I'm recently elected to this board. And I guess maybe selfishly, I think I bring a little unique perspective to this. I do have kids in the system, 5 kids in the system, ranging from high school, but I do have 2 at Hammarskjold. And I take a very practical approach and pragmatic approach. Those who don't know, I am the president of the East Brunswick Arts Commission, so arts don't fall lightly on me. My wife is an artist, I am an artist, I am a musician, I am a financial advisor, but that is in that order, is how I look at my life. I can tell you that change is not easy. I grew up in this town. I went to school from kindergarten all the way through high school, and I clearly remember a meeting just like this, that in 1978 there was a big argument going on over the elimination of what was called modular scheduling at Churchill. And what modular scheduling was, it allowed certain classes to be 3 mods, which we liked very much the name because it was the 70s, and also, and other things, maybe to be 2 mods or even a 1 mod drive-by. So I understand change is hard, and during those times I watched other changes. I watched that there was a separate class for home economics while another group of people were carrying around an egg that had a face painted on it, and it was a baby, and they had to keep it unbroken for a year. Now those 2 courses are combined to something else because things are evolutionary. I do know that what we're talking about today is 2 years of a student's life. I agree. They're important years, and it's also 15.3% of their entire tenure here in the school. So let's not lose sight of that. They get all of the immersion of all of the things that you're discussing in elementary school, and then those junior high years are a pivotal point where they're going to hopefully identify things that they like, and then when they move into Churchill, have the opportunity to focus, and when they move into the high school, if they're like me and a shy kid, they'll be in every Elliott Tabenslag production, they'll be in every Playhouse production, they'll build sets, and they'll learn. We are talking about 6th and 7th grade. It wasn't long ago that 6th grade was an elementary school grade in this town. It got changed. You went to elementary school, depending on what side of the tracks you were born in East Brunswick, you ended up at Hammarskjold or Churchill for junior high, and then you shot up to the high school. So change is tough. They changed the way things went in that respect. Like Mr. Simmons, I think Park is silly and self-serving. I've always felt that. My kids take it. It's a benchmark to some degree, and I leave that to the experts at hand where they place the importance. And fortunately now, being an elected official, I have an opportunity at least to vote into that storm.
1 minute.
So, thank you. So, along with that, and then getting back more specifically to arts, I think back to a class that I had when I was in middle school, well, junior high, and there was a class that was taught by who I thought was one of the greatest teachers I ever had, by the name of Mr. Hanley. And Mr. Hanley taught music appreciation at Churchill. And what music appreciation wasn't a music class, but we learned about piano. It wasn't a music an instrument class, but we learned how to tap 4 different beats, 1 with each foot, and then 1 with each hand. We learned that Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was not a drug reference about LSD. We learned about who John Lennon was, who Jimi Hendrix was, and that was a combined experience. That was in a formidable year, and that shaped the fact that I wanted to be a rock musician. So again, I'm just going to point one thing out. We are not talking about a 13-year wholesale change here. We are talking about 15.3% of a student's experience in this town to get an opportunity to simply see what's out there with the byproduct of practical application in a project-based environment that will include, we've moved far beyond watercoloring a mushroom and hanging it on the wall. Now we can animate it, we can add music to it, we can write a play about it. And that's what this class is going to be. I, for one, for my two Hammersholt kids, I've told them about it from the correct perspective, and they are thrilled to death. I did ask the kids, and that's what they told me. I appreciate everybody being here. I love the passion. I just want you to hear the words that were said. We're not cutting anything. We're enhancing everything. It is quality over quantity. You don't need minutes. You need the best instruction.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Thank you. Next, thank you very much. Sir, please state your name and
Hi, my name is Zack Morrison, 13 Wedgwood Court. I'm a filmmaker. I grew up in East Brunswick. My dad, all his brothers and sisters grew up in East Brunswick. My granddad was a fire chief in town. I understand, sir, how change happens and how we need to adapt to change. As such, I had a whole thing written, just like I'm sure everyone else has, but I'm going to use the improv acting skills that I learned in my 6th grade theater class to yes-and the situation and address a couple things. First and foremost, while we're not eliminating the arts, and I think we've moved past that semantics, if you look at the slide, you're very much eliminating theater arts from the 6th grade. However you want to look at it, a piece of art is being eliminated. And we can argue, no, but we're consolidating, we're doing this and that, but at the end of the day, we are downsizing the arts experience of the 6th graders. And so, on that note, if the source of this problem is math is something we need to address, math is something we have to fix, why are we sacrificing non-math things to fix the math thing? You know, why do we have to take a curriculum that we need to, the new curriculum that needs to have double the time or else it's not worth it to do? But if math is math and you can't fix math and math will always be hard, I don't understand the disparity there. I don't understand why we need to eliminate a student's ability to get up out of his chair and express themselves and learn how to speak in public like I'm doing right now for sake of just more equations. I haven't done a math class since junior year of high school, and I think I'm doing all right because I learned how to speak in public and how to function in a digital society. And in regards to, you know, consolidating all of the arts classes into two, you know, the practical arts one year and creative arts another year, if you can look at the arts and just instantly summarize them as practical and creative, then I'm sorry, I have a feeling you lack an understanding of what the arts actually are and what they mean, you know? And I'm not trying to attack this board or anything. I just finished grad school. I have a Master of Fine Arts from Columbia University. I just spent the last 8 years studying art and nothing else, so forgive me if I'm coming off a little overpassionate, but I personally don't understand the logic. And I think when people are coming up here today saying you're cutting the arts, and you're coming back saying, no, we're not, I think it's because we're not understanding the correlation between removing the public speaking, the self-confidence, the ability to give students, young students, 6th grade students, who at that age it's so important for them to learn how to express themselves and talk and stand in front of a room and learn how to say what's on their mind and not feel the anxiety and the pressure of not getting the math equation right. I think that's where everyone here is coming from, is that we don't see how this is a solution to the problem. I just see it as creating more problems for students in the future down the road, because spending time animating and stuff on computers, that's all well and cool, and if kids have iPads before they have whatever else they're doing as young kids, fine, but that's not fostering social skills. That's not teaching people how to stand up and lead, and our politicians and our educators and the people like you, we're going to have a generation of students who don't know how to talk to each other, who don't know how to do anything that needs to be done out in the world, you know, outside of just technology and computers and math. And then the very last thing I just want to say is that we're stressing the electives and how the electives are still there and the electives are still an option. Forgive me if I'm wrong, I didn't see a theater arts elective on that list. All I saw was...
1 minute.
Thank you. All I saw was drama club, which is fine, but that's not a class. That's an elimination of arts as part of the curriculum. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to everyone else, because everyone is going to be as, we're going to be here for a bit.
That's fine.
But,
That's fine.
But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, my name is James Pan. I live at 223 Milltown Road, for the record. Arts, in my honest opinion, are very important to the curriculum. It's honestly, there are numerous studies, and unfortunately for me, I do not have any of them with me, except for one by the name of Dr. Ryuta Kawashima. He's a Japanese neuroscientist, and what he did was discovered how the brain works and how to foster brain growth. One of the things he did address is that recalling basic things, some memory, and creativity from, for example, drawing things based on purely memory, they help develop the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which does which will help in the basic thought process. Arts also have shown numerous studies over, for example, if the main goal of this was to increase test scores of numerous students. We have students that are enrolled in band and orchestra have higher test scores on these such standardized tests. I remember after almost every orchestra concert I've been, Mr. Perillo comes out on the stage and says, there are 2/3 of our student body is enrolled in all of these art classes. And I understand that these are electives, except there are some faults with the elective choices. Being in band or orchestra or chorus as a full year elective does make restrictions on all of these. And while the high school does offer a bunch of different courses that you can take, such as woodshop, you can also take digital music, you can take different business classes, FBLA, etc. All of them come down to being limited by different times, such as FBLA, you're required to have extra practices and go on different trips across the state. For the academic team, if you want to join that, you're going to have to sacrifice a lot of different other options as well. And being tied down to, by just diminishing your already meager amount of arts education at roughly 25.2 hours of one singular cycle, we are dropping that from a 36-day based curriculum to a 22 to 23-day based area in 15.4 hours. All in all, to just increase your mathematical time spent up to 189 hours. Also, talking to one of my old teachers, Mr. Mark Granito, I talked to him because he was my history teacher in 6th grade. I, being a catechist or a teacher in religious education, I asked him, how do I control these kids? And he said, you need to limit them, you need to keep them on a certain activity to 15 minutes. 15 minutes is possibly the average amount that a 6th grader can spend at one given point. I understand it's attention span is pretty important, but nonstop education for prolonged periods of time isn't that good either. And most of my students have a hard time focusing, so I try and keep on changing the activity for every 15 minutes. I do, okay, let's read a Bible verse, and then after that, let's have a quiz on what we learned last week. And that keeps them on their toes, keeps them engaged, and constantly doesn't, and they keep on coming back. And they usually, they thank me after every time that I teach. I give them a lot deeper insight on stuff rather than just standing at the podium and lecturing out how to solve these problems. Being in the double period ILA did have its benefits, but it also had a lot of problems in my class.
Excuse me, time.
Time. Sorry. I'll end it right there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name's Wilbur Pan. I live at 223 Milltown Road. James is my son. I promise he did all that on his own. He came, so I didn't plant any of that. I'm a pediatric oncologist. In my practice, when I was in practice, I took care of kids with brain tumors. That was my particular interest. I did that for about 21 years. I've had 25 years experience teaching medical students, and in the last 8 years when I was at Robert Wood, I was the head of pediatric medical education. So even though this is not the same area as K through 12 education, there are a lot of parallels that happen in the education process in medical school that I've been hearing. Because of the patients I took care of, I also know the practical issues about how a child develops, both what happens in the normal course of events and what happens when something involving your health interferes with that process. What I know is that arts actually engages brain development in a way that is actually completely different from math, learning math skills. Arts education is tactile education. You learn tactile skills, and by this I mean the only way to learn these things is to do the thing that you're trying to learn. So if you want to learn how to make a clay pot, you have to actually do it. If you want to learn how to give a monologue, you actually have to get up and rehearse and do that. Math does not really fall into that category. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's an idea that we can just substitute like some chunk of time for another chunk of time, and maybe it doesn't really mean a whole lot because it's only 15% of a student's life. Well, that actually isn't true, because if you lose an hour of arts education, there really is no other way of making it up other than spending some other time doing that thing. Math can be made up in other ways. And we know that looking at curriculums across the country, that these sorts of physical activities have been going away year over year over year because of the concerns about test scores and math and STEM and all the things that we talk about. And just so you know, I'm of Chinese descent. My parents drilled into my head the importance of math. So, and I'm not clearly an artist right now, but I understand the importance of arts, and these are the reasons. And these are the reasons why. This actually is impacting medical education, because recently people have found that med students who want to go into surgery, which is heavily dependent on your ability to manipulate things. We're finding students less skilled at manipulating things, probably because they're not getting the same sort of education that engage that part of your brain development, such as the arts earlier on in life. The main issue that I have with the proposal that I'm hearing is that none of this really fits the criteria that I would want to hear if the change is going to be made. The problem has not been well defined. I still don't know what the issue is with math that we're trying to fix with this change in the curriculum. I have some ideas based on my kids' progress from grade school through middle school to junior high and high school and so on. But assuming that we're trying to improve math performance, which is what we keep dancing around, it's not clear to me that the proposal that's in front of us is actually going to be effective, because the proposal is to increase math time. And like I said, that sort of blunt across the board solution really is not efficient, nor is it effective. Again, I don't know the K through 12 medical education literature very well, but I know that in the medical school education literature, for classroom type stuff, increased class time does not correlate with your ability to pass boards. And if you want to talk about a high stakes test, first round of boards in medical school, that's it. What I would look into are more targeted, specific ways of improving math performance, such as maybe integrating the curriculum better from grade school to middle school to junior high to high school. maybe increasing access to math specialists for the kids who really need it, because not every kid is going to benefit from doubling the amount of time of math that they're taking. And finally, to me, this smells like a cut. We've been dancing around this issue a lot. I've noted that when the board talks about this, they say we're not eliminating the arts. I know that we're not eliminating the arts, but there's certainly a cut that's happening because it smells like a cut to me. The way I know that this will not be a cut is if the kids have the same amount of contact time in arts education next year as they did this year, and if the arts faculty is the same number of people as it was next year. And I also want to...
Excuse me, sir. Time.
What?
Time.
Okay. I will make this a voting issue. That's my last comment. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Lynn Elson, and I teach theater over at Churchill Junior High. So I don't live in East Brunswick, I live in East Windsor. Employers around the world regularly express unhappiness with young people's lack of workplace competencies, like communication and teamwork. The foundation for these and other skills, such as creativity and learning agility, are laid in early childhood. This is from the Brookings Institute, September 2016. So, I know that you believe that the theater club will do everything, fill in the blanks, and a creative arts class. But a club is not a class. I teach both. I teach the theater class and I do the drama club after school. They're two totally separate things. One you're teaching, and then one you're kind of quickly going for a goal to try and have a beautiful performance to show off so that they're not embarrassed. And they're really different animals. So I'm wondering what this creative arts class really is, and wondering why it wasn't set first before you moved ahead with it, because I don't really understand what's in it. There seems like a whole bunch of different things, and being taught by someone maybe who doesn't know all those different things, and without any of the things that you need to create that. For example, you were mentioning building the sets and painting the sets and all that stuff, but at Hammersholt, where are you going to keep the sets? What about the lights and the sound, because they're not allowed to touch the Hammersholt lights and sound, because that's a beautiful new building and it is gorgeous. So you don't want the kids to touch it. And there's just so many things I'm wondering about that specific creative arts class. So, do we go ahead and move ahead, or do we think more about the child's well-being? Because that's what I'm really worried about. The child's well-being. Erik Erikson's Stages of Development states that middle school students have a naturally lower self-esteem. They are very critical of who they are, how they fit in, and what they're good and bad at already. This is the time to give them a taste of many different options in life, for if they never have a chance to try something new, they automatically think they're bad in it. These are 10-year-olds. Even if they're not good at specific art, they can learn valuable skills that can't be tested by standardized tests. The arts give students a sense of belonging, a way to express themselves, and learn how to cope with life's many challenges. Many of these challenges are unlike the ones that we had. There's mass shootings, online bullying, the trend of kids having to grow up faster and be perfect, are all the factors that the students have to deal with. Isn't that why we started the district-wide mindfulness initiative? So, David Mathau on the New Jersey 101.5 website said, in New Jersey, 40 children a year between the ages of 10 and 18 take their own lives. The Commissioner of Children and Families said that suicide in New Jersey is the 14th leading cause of death, but it's the third leading cause of death for children and young adults. I think we have to think about that a little bit more. Theater, very important to me, obviously. There's improv that promotes quick thinking, and jazz has improv as well. It's all about accepting of others' ideas, building upon them. It comes from practice in a classroom. Making up their own stories, they can draw, take something from page to the stage, and it might be one of the most valuable skills we can give our future leaders. Not only does it take a lot of endurance to create something and see it through and then share it with the world, but it helps them dream bigger. Already I see a trend in the students' inability to think for themselves, much less articulate what they want. And yes, it might be the fault of the smartphone and the internet and the video games, but it's also going to be education's fault if we don't give them the time to practice the skills that will help them look an interviewer in the eye, articulate what they want to do in life, defend their arguments, and envision a new way of living that we haven't even thought of yet. Don't we want engaged learners to go on to the junior high excited about what they will learn next, not zombies who are already checked out and overwhelmed? So I know some people might read this and think that I'm biased because I'm a theater arts teacher, but I'm also a New Jersey student. I received A+ in math every year, but I didn't run home and practice math. I did run home to practice lines for a scene. I didn't come home with a math test and put it on the fridge, but I did come home with a painting that my grandmother proudly hung in her hallway where everyone could see it. This is where I found my confidence and my joy. Don't take it away from future generations. I'm already afraid they can't make eye contact or articulate themselves. Now I have to worry about them feeling worthy and unable to let go of stress. I was proud of East Brunswick's excellence of the arts. I still am, but now I'm concerned, and I hope you are too.
Time.
Good evening. My name's Joanna Como. I live at 22 Gulf Road in East Brunswick. I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak. I'm coming in as a parent and also as an employee at Hammersholt. I'm in school aid, and I think that gives me some of a unique perspective because I'm on the front line and I see these cycle classes and the students in them. But most of what I would have wanted to say has already been said. There's a piece that is important to me. I have 3 boys in the school system. One's at Hammersholt, 2 are at Lawrence Brook, and they are not the children who would ever take theater as an elective or would ever take art as an elective or would ever take family consumer science as an elective. They are not interested in that, and that's the reason that I need them to take those classes. Because, you know, you said in the opening that this is an age of iPads before potty training, and that's exactly what is going on. And for that reason is why they need the experience of having to go into a room and stand in front of their peers and learn lines and make eye contact, learn how to shake a hand. I mean, these are things that even after I've instilled in them from birth, I still have to remind my 10-year-old that when he's out in public and he's speaking to someone, he needs to look them in the eye. So it's different when it's coming from a parent than when it's coming from a teacher. And I don't want my younger kids to not have the option to not take those classes. As an employee, I see firsthand how much they need these skills when they come into, for example, family consumer science. You don't know how long I watched the 6th grader wash a spoon just because they don't know how to do these things. And an iPad is not going to, make a snack for them and is not going to teach them how to conduct themselves in an interview. So these are, really critical pieces to me. Like, I feel the deduction in the time. I know we talked already about that, and it's devastating. We did move here solely because of the school system, and what makes East Brunswick great isn't the numbers, it's the programs that we have and the enrichment that exists here. So it's really like a devastation to lose any piece of that when they're coming from elementary school and then going to middle school. I know I went to Blue Ribbon School District myself in Long Island, though, and we went from having recess to no longer calling it recess, but we had downtime. We had a full 40-minute lunch, and they're losing that already, and now we're taking away their ability to move around the classroom and, you know, decompress. From a spoiled child position, I don't want my babies to take more math. I feel like they already have such a demanding academic rigor already that they are benefiting from, but I don't see how that is going to help them where the electives will, the cycles will. And as was mentioned before, I don't see how the research supports that more time in math is necessarily going to solve whatever perceived problem there is, because as was mentioned before, I don't really know what the problem is that we're solving or trying to solve. And lastly, I just want to say that I really hope that all the statements that are being presented here are not done in vain, like sincerely, like it almost chokes me up because it's just critical. And it's a wonderful district. And I really hope that you'll take into consideration what people have said and make a genuine, heartfelt solution. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brooklyn Keenley. I'm a 5th grade student at Warnsdorfer Elementary School, and as a 5th grader going into Hammersfield next year, I believe that we should have the cycle classes. That way we can be exposed to all of these different things that may affect our future. I'm here on behalf of the Warnsdorfer 5th grade, and because of this, I made a petition that 71 of my peers have signed. Again, as a 5th grader who is going to be going into Hammersfield next year, I believe that being exposed to all of these things will help us in the future and will be able to help us now. And by having extra math, I don't think that that'll help us. I think it may just hurt us. So I believe that we should keep the cycle classes and find a different way to improve our test scores and other problems that we may have in our district. Thank you.
I'm sorry, 1 minute, sir. I'm sorry. I was going to say, I just had a request from a board member for 1 minute.
Yeah, just to follow up, because I left this out before, to
1 minute.
Mr. I think Morrison's point. And this, you've all given incredible food for thought and continue to do so, but as the administration continues to work this, I would consider a theater elective, if there's space permitting, and also considering maybe half-year electives to be able to give students to mix it up a little bit, space permitting. These are things to think about. They are making very, very good points. We got to try to find a compromise, perhaps, that might be a way to get there, but I'm finished. Thank you.
No, I actually have theater arts elective with a question mark written on my sheet too, so thank you. To the wonderful woman who just spoke and said that she hoped the words of everyone tonight were not in vain. I'm trying to find you. Maybe you went home. Somebody tell her they're not. We're hearing everything, I promise you. And now, thank you so much for your patience.
No
Your
problem.
name and address, please.
My name is Justin Semple. I'm a senior at East Brunswick High School, and I live at 805 Cranberry Circle. Ladies and gentlemen of the board and my peers, to be frank, the decision to cut cycle time is a big mistake. Now, I come from more of an arts background, but my message will most likely still relate to other classes. This decision will be a detriment to our children. What is being cut down from them is exposure to things they might certainly love. This past weekend, the EBHS Drama Club performed our last show of The Music Man. And afterwards, during our celebrations, us seniors recited our senior speeches as a goodbye to Drama Club. Now let me tell you, the numerous people who said that they found their passion for the arts during their middle school years at Hammersfield. The arts have given kids time to decompress and do things they love, settle down from the anxiety that school gives them. Just a time to not have to worry. The message that is being sent to kids and parents and citizens alike is that our arts and all of our cycles, in fact, mean so little that they are the first to be damaged when things go quote-unquote wrong. These kids will not have the chance to be exposed and learn and do things they might not even know they love yet. What is going to happen with this decision is that kids are going to be getting a cookie-cutter education where the attitude is that the arts and generally all cycles of whichever subject do not matter. Now, I hear the problem is low test scores. I do not believe the solution to kids testing low in math is to throw more math at them and take away things that are equally important, but society tells us are not as important. What an actual solution would be is to address the problem and talk to the teachers, the parents, the students, everyone involved. And I don't think that they themselves would think double math would really solve the problem. We need the arts. Without the arts, I wouldn't have been able to find myself and be the person I am today, through music and acting. And I would not want to imagine, even for a second, a child who could not reach their full potential and find their full self and see who they really are because the arts were deemed less necessary. Oscar Wilde once said that art is the most intense mode of individualism and that the world has ever known. One of the mottos I see so proudly displayed around the high school is excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts. The day should not come when the latter is left out.
I'm Samantha Proya. I live at 7 Mercedes Road, and I am a recent graduate of the class of 2018. And back on what Dominic said earlier, not necessarily like cutting down the classes. I totally understand that you aren't, but that brought me back to 6th grade. We had the theater cycle class. We had to perform a play, like a maybe 10, 15-minute play. And I had a kid in my class who I chose to work with who couldn't really talk, who couldn't really like crack out of his shell. And seeing that he couldn't talk, he couldn't really finish like the rehearsals we would do in class, he couldn't do it. And when it came time to perform in front of not only our class, the parents, even some other family members came in. As soon as he uttered his first line, it was like seeing a whole new kid. And being that this kid also was special needs, I feel like taking or diminishing that time from kids not only like me who maybe have like a little bit of an issue with like public speaking and stuff like that, but like kids who have like, say like autism or other like social problems, theater and arts in a way like that can make them a whole new person. I know it's helped with me a lot because I'll be honest, I was utterly scared to get up in front of hundreds of people when I was in Willy Wonka in 6th grade and Honk in 7th grade. But through those 6th and 7th grade cycle classes, those minutes meant all the world to me. Those 7 weeks, even though it was a class that I had to take, I cherished those minutes. And for it to be diminished to me is kind of like, I don't even know how to say, I can't even put it to words. Like, theater and the arts like that is just something I feel like everyone should have. Not necessarily the longest time, but just enough so they can understand it. Thank you.
By the way, you're a very good public speaker.
Good evening. My name is Maria Sapia. I'm at 17 Manton Avenue. I'm here today because a friend of mine has started a petition, and this is only about 1,200 signatures that I'd like to leave here with you guys. Right now it's over 1,800 in just 2 days, in just 48 hours. Dana Eckstein, she's the one that started it. She was a East Brunswick graduate. She's now working at the Yale University Library. She was with me in my Girl Scout troop. She helped me in many years. So she's very dear to me. She's the one that started that. So I just wanted to leave that for the record. I'm very disappointed. Very disappointed. I've been here since 1984. We moved in 94. And my kids love the arts, and they're all into drama. And I have the twins, they're on the spectrum. And for them, you know, it liberates them. More math, I might have to take them out and homeschool. I'm really not gonna put them through that. or move, see another town. I'm very disappointed, to say the least. Thank you for listening.
Hello, good evening. I'm Sophia Babulia. I'm a senior at East Brunswick High School, and I will be attending NYU Tisch School of the Arts for musical theater. Thank you. Just found out 3 hours ago. So the place where I discovered theater, something that I have such a passion for today, was Hammersholt. It was that theater cycle class. Because middle school is such a critical period for self-discovery, and it's where these kids are finding themselves. Before I took theater cycle, before I discovered it, I couldn't even speak in class. I wouldn't have been able to do this. It's something that is so formative. It is art in general. It is such a human thing, such a beautiful thing. And while I understand that it's not being taken away, just to decrease it is going to have such a powerful negative impact on these kids. They need this right now. They're discovering who they are. They don't fully know yet. And I feel like their mental health is something that shouldn't be neglected. The impact that art has on self-discovery, on confidence, on happiness is too significant to ignore in favor of test scores. And I know that's important, and art does help that as well. Art in general, including visual and performing, they improve spatial awareness and comprehension, just attention, everything. They are so incredibly beneficial, and I feel like that should be recognized. So, thank you. I've also, I've been asked to mention that I'm in concert choir, and our teacher keeps track of how many times a student is called out of chorus to go down to the office for whatever the reason may be. Over 80 students have been pulled out of choir. I have never been pulled out of science or math. Why? Yeah. Why are the arts treated, why are they treated as inferior? They are just as important. I'm making a career out of them. Like, why are they treated as something that should be shoved under the rug? I just don't understand that.
Hi, my name is Sapna Stanley. I'm in 8th grade at Churchill. I live at 74 Witten Court. So when I was in Hammersholt, I went through all the cycles, and I had a lot of fun in them. In art cycle, I never really was into art, and in 6th and 7th grade, that really developed more. And I don't take an art cycle now. I don't take any art classes now, but because I tore my meniscus, I can't play sports anymore, like for this month, for the next few months. So I'm dedicating that time to art because of the cycles that I took in Hammersholt, because of that stuff. And when I was when I was really young, I used to perform in like all of the church plays and stuff like that, and that was fun for me. And then in Hammersholt, that was cultivated, and it was people were able to help me grow in that, and I wouldn't trade that for another math class for sure. I enjoy math, but I think math is only going to get you so far. So I watched this video for Prince. I watched it. Some of you might have heard of Prince E.A. He's like an American poet, and one of his latest videos, it's called Student versus Teacher, and I really recommend that you watch it. One of his points was that AI is going to replace all of these future careers. So many careers are going to be replaced by AI in the future, and the only way that you're going to succeed is through resilience, innovation, and creativity. And those are the three that are taught through these classes and electives. You can't replace that with math. Math isn't going to teach you that. I know they make those stained glass projects in 7th grade. That's not art. That's plotting points and then coloring it in. In 7th grade, I made this piece in art. It was a piece that represented a place where I could be me, And I still have that, and that was one of the best pieces that I've made, and because I was so excited to make it, because that was something that was personal to each student. It was something that each student was able to feel for themselves and create themselves. Like, all of these pieces of art that are hung up in the room, like, it's as if you're taking it down. Like you should, like, I know, like, technically you're not eliminating it, but like the man said earlier before, it still feels like there's a cut. It still feels like that. So you might as well just be taking down these artworks off the wall, because that's what's happening. So, thank you.
Hi there, my name's Rachel Gurvich. I'm a 9th grader at Churchill Junior High School, and I live on 16 Camelot Drive. I didn't really plan on talking today, so this might not flow nicely, but I'm reflecting on the very angry conversation I had in my ceramics class today when we were talking about this cut. This year at Churchill, I took 3 arts classes. I took Miss Alston's film class. I see my art teacher, Mr. Amy, here. I took his class, and I'm currently in ceramics. In Hammersholt, I was in the theater club. I don't do that anymore, but I just remember after not having taken chorus last year in 8th grade and trying to sing again in front of a crowd, I was nervous. I didn't do very well, and it was pretty horrific. So I'm kind of thinking about my public speaking skills if I didn't take any sort of public speaking related class like theater for 2 years in a row, because I know that I'm nervous right now, but I would have been 10 times more nervous then. I haven't always done too well in math. It's not my favorite subject, but I know that because of the flow of my day, how I had in Hammersholt, I had theater every day, I had art, I had chorus, I had a lot of creative classes. It really helped me succeed in math because I was able to blow off some steam. I was able to learn other skills that didn't keep me in a chair all day. I know that in classes in 8th and 9th grade, I have friends who don't do art, and we're all so jittery. We always want to get up, like we're stuck sitting in a chair. And I know in English, we were stuck sitting in a chair for 2 periods. And after that class, I just wanted to go straight to theater because I just wanted to move for a little bit. Sorry, I'm trying to think. I understand that math is what's deemed more of a practical skill that we need to have, and I know test scores can, and I know that's not the main factor to why the cutbacks are happening, but our math scores aren't necessarily going to go up if we reduce the arts program. I know that out of East Brunswick, we've had so many people who are successful in arts. We've had actors. There was an Oscar that was just won from 2 people who were from East Brunswick, and that can definitely reflect. We have actors. We have Jax, who is on America's Got Talent. She used her skills that she probably learned in Hammersholt singing. I know she came back to Hammersholt one day. I just feel like the arts program is such a critical point to our education, and it shouldn't be something that should be diminished in any sort of sense. I mean, I heard someone say before, I can't remember who, about how, Miss Elson, how she talked about how she didn't hang her math grades on the wall, but she did hang her art. I mean, I know I've never hung my math grades on the wall. I wasn't necessarily always proud of them. But I went to the library just last week to see my art hanging in the library. I know my math grades definitely weren't there. I just feel like it's really important to remember that everything has just an equal of a place on our schedule, and that there are kids who might not necessarily have gone through with theater in their life if they didn't have the experience taking it. And I mean, I do sports after school, so I can't be necessarily partake in theater club. And I know in Hammersholt, I wanted to do art club, I wanted to do theater club, I wanted to do student council. I couldn't do all 3 of them. I didn't have enough time. They all met on the same day. And I wasn't able to take art as an elective during Hammersholt because I wanted to take chorus. So I don't think that students are going to be getting their full aspect to the arts program if there are any cuts. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allison Cregan. I live at 29 Herbert Drive.
I'm sorry, excuse me, can you repeat your name?
Allison Cregan.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to talk, but the more I'm listening, the more I wanted to say something. I feel that what we're trying to say in cutting-wise is we've always said as East Brunswick that we're a forward-thinking town. When you look at past histories, East Brunswick as well as other towns across the United States, it starts with reevaluating things. They started with cutting out things like woodworking shop, auto mechanics, cooking. Where has that left us? It's left us with kids that don't know how to have graduated college, don't know how to cook for themselves. The obesity rate is rising. It's left us with recycling problems because we've taught our kids that things can be disposable. They don't know how to fix their own clothes if something breaks, and so everything is disposable. We've become a society that doesn't think forward in those areas. We're willing to subject our children to losing those parts that are essential to their education. So now you're looking at arts and you're saying you're not cutting them, and I get that you're not cutting them, you're reevaluating how they are. But when it comes to math, I know that you say that there's a problem with math. We would like to know what the problem is. I don't understand why, as a board, you have now proceeded to where you are. I come as a parent who isn't in Amershott anymore. My child is in Churchill. The math program has severely let him down. I'm not talking individually as to what it is. My husband went through East Brunswick. I went through North Brunswick. I can tell you your math program as it is right now is severely lacking. So now if you want to add another period to it, A, you're already having issues with kids being overstressed in society and not being able to handle it. So now you're going to add another period where they already have a hard time sitting still. A subject that for most kids, there are kids that love math, I get it. But for most kids, math is a very taxing subject. So now you're adding this to their brains, and all it's doing is causing more stress, which causes irritable students, which in turn causes them to lash out either at peers, at teachers, at parents. It's not teaching your child how to de-stress, how to carry on. I come from an arts background. I'm trying to get into a master's program to become an art therapist because of what art does to heal you, to de-stress you. As society becomes what it is, there's kids just down in Florida now, in 5th grade, a beating in a classroom, and no weapons. A 5th grader was killed. Now, do you really want our children to be more stressed every day? And especially 6th and 7th grade, it's the age where they are the most vulnerable to society, to peer pressures, to the stresses of life. It's where they're beginning to realize what's happening in their family lives. They're more aware of what parents are going through, the stresses of everything day-to-day life. And you want to add an extra math period to them? I don't understand how you could come to us as the board saying, we're going to do this class, but you have no curriculum for it. You have no idea how you're going to run it, no idea what you're going to teach it. You're saying that the class itself is going to be a classroom that the kids come to. Is it going to have computers for different things? Is it going to have a stage where you can do the arts and theaters? Does it have all of the things in one classroom? How big is this classroom going to be to fit everything that is required to do all of those things? You've put to force to us that no math objective. You're saying you need to do that. I get the health things. Great, so you have to redo the schedule anyway for health. Relook at it. You need to fit whatever in to do with fitting the health requirements. But how can you come to us and say, let's think about this, when you've got no curriculum set forward for this new class, no curriculum as to what you're saying to us, how you're going to fix the math problem. How can you honestly sit here and not expect us as parents and staff and teachers to not seriously question your motives as to not being for standardized testing? It's ridiculous, and you're doing our children an injustice. You seriously are. If we don't have arts and the time for that, their stress levels are going to go beyond belief. So you can make up your math wherever you want. And the funny thing is, when I went to school, the auto mechanics teacher, when there was problems in the math classes, they worked with the teachers, the kids that were struggling in math. The auto mechanics shop teacher was well known for working with the math teacher, saying, okay, what's the area your kid's having a problem in? Okay, and he figured out how to make it that the kid was able to learn it through auto mechanics. If you're having problems with math, why not try and work out a way that math can be incorporated into the other areas and show it? That math is there. It's not just in a classroom that teaches algebra or calculus or the basics.
Ma'am, time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Nichols. I'm an Edison Township resident, and I've been the elementary school band director, one of them in East Brunswick, for the past 7 years. I teach at Central, Frost, Irwin, and Warnsdorfer, and I have many colleagues in New Jersey who are also music educators and arts educators. And as often happens at a rehearsal of my own, I'm a trumpet player, I speak with other colleagues who do the same job I do in other districts at varying levels. And when I'm asked about my position, the first words out of my mouth are always, without fail, I love my job. And I find increasingly that I need to follow that sentiment with, no, really, because my colleagues and counterparts at other districts chuckle and they think I'm being sarcastic. East Brunswick is somewhat of an oasis in arts education. I am here. I am only here tonight because a position was created in 2012. We added on to our arts education staff because it was expanding. That was the only school district that was expanding its arts education in that year. I graduated in 2010 with my music education degree. When I started at Rutgers, we were promised a 100% placement rate from the music education program. After the recession hit, programs were cut, and 30% of us received a job. Of that 30%, one young man received a full-time tenure-track position. East Brunswick is not like that. There is no delayed gratification quite like honing artistry. I said I'm a trumpet player, and we've all heard about the 10,000 hours, and the lonely practice room hours are a reality of doing that kind of thing. And the proposed changes to our curriculum, I feel that they're relegating arts education to the back burner, not because of minutes or percentages of time that the children will be spending in those classes, but because of the interruption of those hours. Honing a craft, whether it be playing an instrument, learning to monologue, creating visual art that you see around you on the walls here, that takes uninterrupted, consistent, deliberate practice, not just a taste of those things in a one-stop shop sort of class. A one-stop shop for arts education is not an effective way to foster a deep understanding of these processes that it takes to create art. But it's not just in the creation of art where I'm concerned, because we know that learning how to play hot cross buns does not necessarily prepare a child for a job interview. Or does it? Learning how to play hot cross buns involves every section of the brain. It involves physical dexterity, resilience, performance skills, things that I teach in my classroom every single day. A lot of what I wanted to say about this issue has already been said tonight, including that hospitals are receiving surgical residents who are brilliantly minded with outstanding test scores, but cannot cut or sew or relate face-to-face with their patients. My best friend is a surgeon. The arts build the whole person, and they should not just be a feature. They are not a decoration, even though sometimes through the process we create decorations. The arts should not be on the back burner. They shouldn't be a one-stop shop. They should be at the forefront of our education, because through arts education, we learn how to do other things. There is a difference between a structured, deep, full-length class period and a satellite, a pull-out, a club, or a one-stop shop kind of class. We teach our kids how to fail, and how to fail well, and over and over and over again. That does not necessarily happen in a math class where the grade on the paper is the grade that you got. There are endless chances to improve in arts education. And we want to teach our students that they need to have a growth mindset. We are preparing them with 21st century skills for 21st century jobs and careers. Those 21st century careers are not going to be rooted in computation skills. The computers are doing that. I was told 20 years ago I wasn't going to have a calculator in my pocket all the time. Well, I left it over there, but I usually do.
1 minute.
I hope that we focus on scaffolding our students' humanity, not the right brain stuff. One of my greatest mentors, my trumpet professor from Rutgers, Scott Whitener, he said over and over and over again, we learn by doing. There is a substitute for computation time, theoretical skills. You can go online and read about and learn about just about anything, book learning. There is no substitute for hands-on arts instructional time with an expert in the field. And I can only hope that we give as much of that as possible to our students. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Harshita Bhargava, and I live at 81 Wooten Court. I am an 8th grader at Churchill Junior High School, and I am partially terrified to be up here, but I would not be up here if it weren't for Theater Cycle. It has taught me so much, as somebody said here, improv, and like I was so shy when I was in 5th grade, and in 6th grade I went into my Theater Cycle class, and I learned all of this brand new stuff about improv that I did not know at all about, and my mind opened up, and I was like, oh, okay, this seems really cool. And then that's when drama club auditions came around. I tried out for drama club, and I got a part, surprisingly, and I was really overly ecstatic that I did. And then time came around, and then in 7th grade, same thing. I tried out for a part, I got in. And then now in Churchill, I was not in the play for Insanity of Mary Gerard, but I was a stage manager and house manager. That taught me so much that I did not know. I loved being in drama club. Thank you to Miss Elson and Miss Menuza. And to go back to Hammersholt, it is, speaking from experience, a cycle class really does help you get out of your head. I was so anxious, and all that anxiety that I had from math tests and history tests and common assessments and everything, it kind of all just diminished because of all of these cycles that I had. And I just loved being a part of a community where I could talk to my friends but also learn at the same time. And so I understand that the idea of adding an extra session of math every other day is to improve standardized testing scores. But I do think that you should not be reducing the amount of art and theater that is at Hammersholt, because I really do think that it would give a student basic life skills that are like really needed. So I kindly request the board to consider keeping full cycles at Hammersholt Middle School. Thank you for listening.
My name is Kurt Philipczak, 6th Guitarist Court. Good evening, board members and administrators. I will not repeat the points that were made before because I agree with all of them. In brief, I'll try to be brief, and I deeply respect board members due to it's not an easy job. I respect anyone who donates their time for the good of a school system. But parents are confused when they made a selection for their 6th grade classes, and at the time they made the selections to the time they were approved, they were denied. So they didn't understand that all the classes that the kids were talking up because the younger kids want to know what the older kids took, they realized they don't exist anymore. If you pick band, you're limited from taking theater now. And the bottom line is that classroom instruction in the arts will be reduced. I just want the board to take the time to explain the vision a little bit better to parents. Don't rush to this. It seems as if this change was made from the time they made their classes to the time it was approved. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Sudell. I no longer live in East Brunswick. I'm at 90 Main Street, Matawan. So I'm a 2010 alum of East Brunswick High School. I did not have the traditional educational experience after high school. Started working, went to school, went into a financial hardship with my family, went to work. So here I am with no college degree. However, I am working. I'm a project manager for a software company now. And I just would like to say, I took some notes, so please don't mind me. I always, still to this day, commend the district and just my whole upbringing on everything here, right? We have a great arts program. I'm a direct product of that, and I'm still involved with volunteering my time with the marching band during the fall. The district is so diverse, and I encourage each and every one of you to continue instilling that same diversity in your curriculum and in your problem-solving skills with trying to find out whatever that mathematics problem is with why we can't achieve what needs to be done. Art is not a one-size-fits-all program. I understand the efficiency part of it and trying to be efficient in downsizing and getting everything to be in one class. However, who are you going to hire for those classes? You know, it's just one of those things where I would like to know for future educators out there, are they going to have a job? That's why I stopped going to school for music education, because I also did not know, would I have a job? And here we are in a situation like this. So please, for everybody else's benefit in this district, you have a fantastic staff at your feet. And I highly, highly encourage you to not make any rash decisions there. But I would also like to remind that soft skills needed for a career, especially in fast-paced industries, are not just taught in a classroom. So I work alongside engineers all day. You can only imagine what their people skills are like. They're awful. So I would just like to remind you that the people skills are also learned very early too. And while I did not necessarily use all of my theater cycle skills, right? I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. However, in high school, I know Mr. Davis is back there. I was a lighting and sound designer as well. So obviously it came back full circle, but the skills that middle schoolers learn will stay with them forever. Math, I'm not so confident that it will. I can't tell you anything more about Mr. Krempecki's 6th grade math class, so I'm not sure. The long term, I feel, is not going to outweigh whatever benefit you are trying to instill. And again, I will go back to my initial point, and then I will get off the soapbox here. The problem-solving skills that were instilled in all of us, right? As a project manager, I always say unique problems require unique solutions. And this was something that I learned within my time in the school district. So I encourage you to use that in your own decision-making when considering how do we go across this hurdle of the mathematics issue. Thank you, everyone.
Excuse me, young lady. No need to give your address.
My name is Kaylee Peterson. I go to Hammersholt right now. I know that we don't want electives to be cut because it takes away from our interests and our other abilities that we didn't really know we had, like cooking and family consumer science and laundry. Most of the kids didn't even know how to cook. So now we're just learning skills that we will use later on in our lives. So when we learn these skills, it's like our classes, since we don't have recess, these classes are like our recess. And if we have another period of math, it's gonna like build onto our brain, and it's too much information for us to learn in one day. So
So what I think we should do is keep the electives and not have another period of math, because as I know my fellow classmates agree, we don't want our electives to be taken away, because we use these skills in our lives later on. Like now, we might not use cooking and laundry so much because our parents do it for us. But later on, when we move out, we're not going to have anybody to do that for us. So we're going to have to do it ourselves. So I think it's bad that you guys think that you guys should get rid of them. Thank you for listening.
I gotta follow that. Hi, my name is Jeffrey Davis. I don't live in town. I teach here. I'm the theater teacher at East Brunswick High School. I live in Plainsboro. I thought of a lot of different things that I might say here tonight. I wanted at one point to talk about testing and how ludicrous chasing test scores is, and especially about if the test score we're chasing is the park test score. You know, if we're doing this because there's a problem with math grade, I don't know. We don't know. I think what came out here today was that we don't know why this change is being made. We know it has seemingly something to do with math, so instantly we go to test scores. If that is, then we're validating the park as an actual test that could possibly judge our children, and it's not. I don't know, somebody told me that the average SAT math score for East Brunswick students was something like 750 or 770, I don't know exactly, but that would indicate we're doing a pretty good job with the math, I would think. 670, was that it? I don't know. I don't math. I don't. I build sets, but it's very simple math. I think what I want to tell you is that 6 months after I landed in this district 14 years ago, and I've taught in 3 other districts, I called my sister, and I told her how incredibly happy I was because I had finally found a district that actually valued the arts. And there's a ton of them out there, and I've worked in them, including in high schools of performing arts, that say they value them, but they don't actually value them. And I think that in my head, I had the relationship about why East Brunswick valued the arts wrong. And I've come to realize this today. I thought it was because my principal valued the arts. And I thought it was because this board valued the arts. But I look out today and I listen to these children and parents speak, and I realize that I was thinking of this as an employee, and the relationship is wrong. You guys do value the arts, but you do so because you are a reflection of this community. So, which actually does value the arts. So I think whatever problem it is you're trying to solve by moving things around and doubling math and reducing time for the cycles, I think what I hope you take away from what you're hearing here tonight from this community that you serve, that I serve, is that your solution you're proposing has stepped outside of the values that they actually hold. And I commend you for trying to solve the problem, and I offer, I don't math again, but I offer what little assistance, I do have a very creative mind.
1 minute.
That I can to help. And finally, I would like to say that I believe that while we're talking a lot about the arts here tonight, all of the cycle classes need to remain. The practical arts classes are just as important for these 6th and 7th graders. They're vital, and they serve the same purpose. And I think that the difference, the reason why you have so many people here talking about the arts is that we are perennially on the chopping block in most of the world. So when somebody says, oh, we're reducing the time for this, everybody who's even vaguely interested in the arts is like, oh no, no. But all of the cycle classes are important, and they all need to be preserved. I thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Alona Bevilacqua, and I am a teacher at Churchill. I teach computer literacy. I'm also a resident, 22 Donald Road. I had no intention of speaking today, but I got inspired by everyone else. And I feel like I have to say these words. I love math, okay? I do hang up my math tests when I was little. I hang up my kids' math tests on the fridge. Math is important. I'm a computer geek. I teach computers. Saying that babies with iPods or iPads before they're potty trained, that is what's happening right now, but someone watching a YouTube video is not the same as making a PowerPoint presentation to a boardroom or using an Excel spreadsheet to solve a real-world problem. These are the things, mechanical engineering in a STEM class. These are not the same as a kid watching a video, as a 2-year-old. So yes, they're coming in with different skills. Yes, they're more savvy technically, but they still need the skills that we are teaching in computer literacy and in STEM. And obviously, I'm not saying anything against the arts, but I'm the only one that's talking about practical arts right now, so I gotta get it in here. These are real 21st century skills that the kids need. And just lumping them in as one cycle of 4 different things, theater, art, STEM, and computer literacy, if I read that slide correctly, they're going to have a quarter of each of those for a 45-day cycle. That is not enough time for these kids to get what they need, honestly. So, I mean, this is how a computer person takes notes, just so you see that. But I mean, it's just not enough time, and I'm really hopeful that we can find another way to make the math scores better without having to disrespect these other fields, because these other fields are just as important. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Mike Hennessy, 12 Delaware Drive in East Brunswick. I also kind of improvised from the back of the room, and I took my notes on a computer in my pocket.
It's okay.
Most of my questions are logistical kind of questions. Is this a done decision? Is there a time frame involved in when this has to be done in order to be ready for next school year? Ballpark?
We would have to design the courses, obviously at the end of the school year and over the summer.
Okay, so in the next month or 2?
Correct.
Okay. The basis for the decision, I didn't, like a lot of people here, it sounds like I didn't really follow the logic of kids are more tech savvy coming into school these days. But is there some place that we can go to learn a lot more detail around the why, so that I can give my kids the correct explanation?
You could
that
actually.
That was really condescending comment before.
So I don't. Obviously, we look at holistically at all the students, and there's been a lot of discussion tonight.
Is that a no? There is no place that I can go to learn more about this, the detail of this?
No, sir, that's not what I meant.
Okay. I mean, you take
no,
the
sir,
hours.
that's
I'm not asking you to give me the explanation now. I've probably heard the standard answer.
Okay.
I want to know if there's some place that I can learn about the research that's been done that you guys base this decision on. Is that a fair question?
Yes, it's a fair question. we look at data that we have based on students' performance.
But it
We
wasn't
don't-
test
we-
scores.
we don't-
You
we
literally
don't-
said it wasn't based on test scores, right? So
We don't look at all test scores, and we're not driven by the
That's
PARCC.
fine.
We're
I
not
just
driven
wanna
by the
know more
PARCC
about it.
exam. But we have to acknowledge that there are a number of students whose parents have retained tutors for math support. Because the teachers, we've heard from teachers that they don't have enough time in the middle school math environment to teach the curriculum. Because one period doesn't do it.
yeah, I mean, I'm not looking for the explanation right now. I don't think there's anything you can say right now to make me really satisfied.
Oh, I thought
wanna
you were,
go
I'm
read a
sorry, I
couple-
thought you were asking me a question.
No, I want to go read a couple pages about how you made this decision. I want to know what research studies by professional educators were used to base as the basis for
I
your
make
decision.
decisions based on information we have in East Brunswick, not research studies that have no connection with what our students are doing here. I'm looking at the data that we have in our district.
In a vacuum. Okay. What about the trends toward people moving to East Brunswick based on the reputation of the education system? Does that factor into these kind of decisions? The view that people have kind of generically of the quality of education? It's literally why we moved here. Just kind of curious if that factors into your decision.
My recommendations to the board are always based on what's doing best for students, every single time.
All right. I'm left with the impression, I love the snow day phone calls. That was really all I knew about you until tonight. The second thing I learned about you is that you said there are no cuts. And that's nonsense, frankly. This is absolutely about some kind of cuts, okay? They might be the right decision, but really we're not able to learn that information in this session. So I'm asking, is there a link to a website where someone has written a couple pages explaining this in more detail?
Not at this time, but
Could that be something that could happen?
it could be something that could happen. If you have been noticing, all the board members have been taking notes, either manually or on their cell phones. All the administrators here, all the administrators in the audience, I can see them, I know that you can't, have been sitting with their notebooks. We've all been scribbling furiously.
Cool.
And I think that there are quite a few things that will come out of this, chief among them that we have learned that we could do a better job communicating and rolling things out. Can always learn that. So if you're asking, is there a possibility or can we? Of course we can. So if there is a need, a desire to receive more information, the district can be responsive to that, absolutely.
But Mrs. Becker, if I might
Yes.
answer your question, the board has not made an official decision on this, so if that helps.
It does.
I will tell you, as one, vote, my mind is changing in terms of what I'm thinking here. This is very, very persuasive, what I've been hearing tonight, but we have not decided yet.
Okay, that's
So,
good.
and that also would explain why some materials, I think, as Mrs. Becker points out, this got miscommunicated somehow as the thinking was going on.
Yeah, that's
Which
reasonable.
kind
I
of stinks
believe that.
because, nothing's been rolled out officially. So now we sort of have to catch up with that going on. But we're going to continue to
Okay, so
think about this.
what I'm really looking for is something mathematical that explains why you think adding, 33% for 6th and 7th grade to the math curriculum and taking it away from the arts program is an important thing. Because we really haven't heard that. You've just said you're basing it on numbers, but you haven't told us what those are. That's fine. We don't have to know people's names and test scores, but it would be helpful if you could give more technical detail around that decision, right?
Time.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Christine Rampola, 19 Dorothy Lane. I echo all of the sentiments of people who spoke before me, but what I wanted to speak specifically, Mr. Winston, about this being 1 grade or 2 grades, about it being a portion. I need to really disagree with that, and the reason why. a small group of parents that are here are parents who've been here, who've been here a number of times since we started taking the park test. To speak mainly about how our curriculum has morphed year after year to prep students for park. And I came and I spoke early on. You've met my two daughters. They're only 1 grade apart. So I get a really close eagle's eye of when the curriculum changes from the grade they're in from 1 year to the next, because it's back to back. And oftentimes they've had the same teacher. So it's not a change that their teacher made. And I've seen a very sharp increase in the amount of instructional and testing time solely on the 2 park tested subjects. So that it's happening here in Hammarskjöld in this specific instance, it's not just 2 grades. This is a small piece of that puzzle. It is an ongoing thing that's been happening. My daughters have been subject to numerous pilot programs, personalized learning programs that go on for the whole year. And in each instance, at the beginning of the year when I found out they were adding this program, my first question was, okay, how many additional hours a day or week are they getting on math and ILA because of this program, and what was replaced? And I have never, ever, ever received a clear answer for that. I've actually been given answers like, well, the kids, sometimes they waste a lot of time sort of daydreaming in class, and we're gonna cut down on that. I mean, I've actually received answers that unclear. And so I think the difference here, or I think it's twofold. I think the distinction here, I think, we're talking specifically about reducing the amount of the arts. So I think that's something sacred, and I think that's a big difference, because in this instance, that's different from when we've increased math and ILA and reduced other subjects or time on other subjects in the past. Parents weren't told specifically what was being reduced so that we could increase that instructional or testing time in math and ILA. Here we're getting we're actually being told, I think, for the first time in this instance, what's being reduced. And I think that has a lot to do with the structure of there being periods at Hammarskjöld. That doesn't happen, obviously, in elementary school. So we don't get to see when it's 10 minutes less here a day on this and 10 minutes, we don't get to see that. I think there are a lot of parents who are here and upset. I think that had they seen this each year, had it been spelled out, I think that they would be upset about each one of those years and everything that our children have lost out on each one of those years. And so I just wanted to speak to that point, that it's not just about 2 years. This is something that's been ongoing. This isn't new. I think this is just the first time that we got a really clear glimpse in a letter that's gone out that said, this is being changed specifically so that we can increase math. I think that's an ongoing thing, but this is the first time it was spelt out clearly for parents. So it's year after year, and it really needs to stop, because I think, as you could see, this is not what the community wants. This is not what the people who've entrusted you to sit here and make decisions for our children, this is not what the community wants. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel Schmeidler. I live at 61 Tall Oaks Drive, and I grew up at 86 Tall Oaks Drive, where my parents still live, so I have a very proud mother. I am the proud mom also of an East Brunswick High School student who's very involved with the arts. I'm a product of the arts program, even though I work in telecom. Secretly, I was supposed to be a Broadway star. So my daughter Celia will have to carry on that legacy. There's 2 things I wanted to. I'm not going to talk about my love for theater. I think it would be disingenuous to even to repeat what everybody has said and to express why I have passions for it. Clearly, it's something I probably would have already loved and wanted to do. And my reason for coming tonight was because I wanted to be able to share that passion for it. But after sitting and listening to everybody, I find I'm more concerned about the other side of the spectrum, and that's the pressure that we're going to be putting on the children for doubling math. Dr. Valesky, you said something that was disheartening. I understand that we're looking at the statistics from within East Brunswick, but I do have a problem with not looking to other studies, to not depending on other studies, to not weighting them the same way we would with our own student statistics. I understand, but there is a world of information out there to inform this decision that we're not looking at. But if I play that game and we only look within the vacuum of the East Brunswick community, I would strongly urge you to not only look at the test scores, the anecdotal evidence from the different math classes, from the math teachers themselves, who honestly, I really wish there was a presence of them here tonight, because I still feel like we're not understanding what the problem is. But if you are going to look at those numbers, you have to put the same strength on the number of children in 5th and 6th and 7th grade who are on antidepressants, who are on anti-anxiety medication. And this is information that I think the school has, because as a parent, I have to fill out lots and lots and lots of forms repetitively every year, telling you what kind of medication my children are on. And we are dealing with a crisis of kids who are having high anxiety, depression rates, antisocial behavior. And if you're going to weight the math classes, you have to put the equal weight on the children's social well-being. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Novak, and I live at 4 Paul Street in East Brunswick. I like to consider myself a kind of like a unicorn here. I live in town. I teach in town. I love this town. You know, I've been here for a long time. I'm a long-time resident of, 13 years now. And growing up, I lived on the other side of Old Stage Road. I went to Spotswood High School. I didn't have the things that we have here at East Brunswick High School, with all the electives and in the elementary schools and everything else. I'm proud. The day I got this job, I said I arrived. I was super happy. I was super just enthralled at the fact that I finally crossed over Old Stage Road. And I could wear green and white. You know, I have a son. I have 2 sons. One's in 7th grade and one's in 3rd grade. Now, I can talk about the experiences because, like I said, I'm a unique unicorn. And I know many of you people here at the board. Having my son now at 7th grade, going through the cycle of 6th grade, the maturity that he gained from those classes was astronomical. The fact that he was able to, when I went to college, I put myself through college cooking, and I was a chef. I worked in Italian restaurants in the Upper East Side and everything else. I cooked my whole. I'm the cook in the house. My wife doesn't cook. She's a great reheater, but she doesn't cook. Okay, and she'll tell you that too. I did stand-up comedy for a little while too. That helps me in the classroom with improv. But the fact that I tried getting my son to cook for many, many years, and he said, "No, I don't want to." He took a cooking class. He's cooking now in my house. I'm like, where did this kid come from? It's fantastic. All these cycles. He's sewing. He goes outside into the woods where his fort is with his friends, and they sew things with twine and stuff that they find. He would have never learned this if it wasn't for these educators. I implore you, please don't take away these cycles. I am living proof with my son changing over the course of the past year and a half and seeing it through him. You know, I teach here in town. Like I said, I'm so passionate about what I do here. I bleed green and white. So I'm asking you, please, as smart, intelligent human beings that love this town as much as I do, to rethink the possibility of restructuring the math and not taking away these cycles from these children. I mean, I think you guys have heard a lot of testimony that is positive, and I'm living proof every day in my house with my son. And I'm hoping that you keep it this way so that when my younger 3rd grader, who's now in theater week and is absolutely loving it and was nervous as all could be on Monday and not as much now, and the play is tomorrow, it's just, I want him to have that same experience, you know? So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Good evening.
My name is Catherine Friedman. I live all the way down in Atlantic County. I have a 3.5-hour round trip. That's how important it is for me to come to speak to you tonight. I was in this room 21 years ago when people in these chairs made the decision to take what Amy Eisenberg started and Dr. Susko's vision and create a theater arts program for all students at Hammersholt Middle School in 7th grade. They saw the value of what it could be. I wrote that curriculum. It was so successful, we added a 6th grade program. It was so successful, we added a program at Churchill. East Brunswick is known. I've given lectures on a state level about the arts and how important it is. Not just for art's sake, but for exploratory courses at the middle school age. You've heard from parents and teachers and students themselves about being exposed to things that they never would choose on their own. Could someone go back to the slide with the electives, please? What stood out for me, I have 2 children. One is special ed. I'm looking at the 2 bottom ones. Study skills, literacy den, as needed. Those students don't get anything else. That's it. They're stuck with that all year. Is it what they need? Absolutely. Absolutely it's what they need. But where is their spark? There's no recess. It's academics, 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 support, academics, academics. You have a problem with apathy in your student body at Hammersholt. I haven't taught there in 12 years. I moved out of the district. I have my finger on the pulse. I am still in service to all of these people, including former students, colleagues, and friends. A student that chooses an instrument doesn't get anything else. I know, as everyone here knows, you care. Otherwise, you wouldn't have run for Board of Education. I ran a local election where I live. It's not easy. We appreciate you wanting to be of service for the people that voted for you. You work for them. I'm excited that some of you are changing your minds. Does the curriculum need to stay the way it was 20 years ago? Gosh, I hope not. Okay? What we did 20 years ago in theater might not work today. It needs to be tweaked. It needs to be changed and enhanced. Bring in more technology. But we've got to get the kids off the screens. And in the middle school, it's those ages that are so important for them to try on different hats. Think back to when you were in middle school.
1 minute.
Sylvia, can I have your time? Sure. Thanks. So when we're talking about all of these things, we need to make good decisions for the students. You want to do a double math period? Don't lump all the cycles together and shorten that time. Maybe do a 3-block, 2 periods of LA, 1 period of math on an A day. On your B day, 2 periods of math, 1 period of LA. I don't know what the answer is. But there are creative solutions out there. I am more than happy to volunteer to help you come up with them. Please listen to what they're telling you. Unfortunately, this meeting is the same night as the Hammersholt Middle School play. So none of those teachers are here.
Time.
And most of those parents aren't, but they would be if they could. You've got over 2,500 signatures on that petition. I have emails and videos from people across the country that have gone through this program. Please don't do a disservice to these kids. I implore you.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I made you a promise earlier that we would listen to you. We've been listening. Thank you for coming. And now I'd like to take a few-minute recess so that everyone can have the time to get their things and go home and either practice a play or do some math homework, whatever you're doing. Thank you for coming. We're back in session. I had thought and was encouraged to give a summation, a summary, afterwards. And then I had other people tell me, don't. This is the public's time. We take it in. We get back to them. We be thoughtful. I wasn't quite sure what to do, so I didn't say anything when we had an audience. But you don't need an audience to necessarily sum anything up. I don't believe in playing lip service or bells and whistles just because there's a lot of people there. Words can still be said. And the words I want to say are, this board and this administration made some very careful, thoughtful decisions. Quite honestly, I don't think we were ready to roll this out. I think our hand was forced by having to address misinformation that was out there, and we thought that was irresponsible. I think there were a lot of points that were brought up tonight that need to be thought about. But I think that there was a lot of things lost in what Dr. Valesky carefully laid out, because the arts become a very emotional, personal subject. And my response to it would have also been personal and emotional, because my whole life has been about the arts. And that was another reason I did not want to sum up. I felt that these people spoke, we heard them, and now we talk, and we speak. But again, I'm not so sure that the people who are here tonight heard all the things they needed to. So I'm going to urge the administration to keep thinking of ways to present the information we need to get out in less emotional, stressful circumstances. And the board members, we're all going to be tempted to talk to people. I urge us all to carefully think and rethink about what we heard tonight, what we've already talked about, what we've already given consensus for, before we have another discussion. And now, I would like an agenda. I would like a motion for the entire agenda, please. Moved by Mrs. Lax, second by Mr. Winston. Is there any discussion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Sismar?
Yes.
Mr. Hong?
Yes.
Mrs. Lax?
Yes.
Mrs. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Seeler?
Yes, but I have to abstain on human resources number 1.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
Mrs. President Becker?
Yes, motion carried. The agenda is moved. Kirthana?
So
So something that we've been focusing on these past few weeks is about the student voice. And in that we can see Principals Council, where we've been starting to pursue the 2020 vision of the one-to-one initiative. And during this Principals Council meeting, we had the opportunity to see students' reactions to the new one-to-one devices. And administration essentially asked the question, what exactly makes this effective for the students? And they took the time to consider that and see how exactly it would play a role within education, possibly even next year, because it is something that they're looking to implement. And it was met with very positive reception. But again, with Principals Council, student voice is something that is very important. And student voice is something that I've come to represent. So something I do want to mention are programs such as Model Congress, Future Business Leaders of America, our Model United Nations program, our concert band and wind ensemble that actually performed last weekend at Monroe, and our wind ensemble that will be performing this weekend. I would like to congratulate them on that opportunity for the great performances that they've done. Also the orchestra program that is currently on an invitational in, I think, Atlantic City, if I remember correctly, overnight trip. So good luck to them for that. And for an amazing performance in Music Man. The tens of dozens of students who have put on an amazing performance. So I would like to congratulate them for that. And that is my committee report.
Thank you so much. Always appreciate hearing from you. Are there any committee reports or good of the cause of the board? Seeing none, we do have a need to go into closed session. The Board of Education must discuss matters which are not appropriate for discussion in a public meeting. Those matters are the ones listed in the agenda. Can I please have a motion to go into closed session, whereas the length of the closed session is estimated to be 3 hours, after which the public meeting of the board shall reconvene and action may be taken. Moved by Mrs. Lax. Second by Mr. Seeler. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, good. We're done. Thank you. Good night.